passages of regulations under the Affordable Care Act that need scrutiny. That being said, when I spoke to your colleagues in the Ways and Means in June regarding one of the key scandals in Washington right now, what struck me as I watched your website and other congressional websites is that you have an opportunity here to be a voice for clarity regarding ethics, equal application of the law, and transparency regarding all of these scandals, IRS, AP, NSA, all of them. And I wonder what's keeping you from doing that.
I thank you for thinking that I can play that big national role. I try to speak out on the right side. I guess our webpage could use a bit more up-to-date content, but in terms of speaking out on the issues I think are important, I think we're here and I'm doing that right now. As to the NSA, I voted for the Amash Amendment. As for Obamacare, I'll take a minute on that. There's a lack of focus on how the system was deteriorating before the Health Care Act was passed, or the Obamacare Act was passed. The first, a couple of things to keep in mind. First, this whole controversy is not about staying well, which is probably more important than the kind of medical care you get. I would trade my right to go see a physician for the next 12 months if I could lose about 20 pounds. I haven't done the scientific work on that, but I bet you all that the 20 pounds is going to cost me more longevity than all the doctors I see in the next year are going to add to it. So we need to focus on being well rather than just health care. Then on health care, it's the efficiency of the overall health care system. That prices just keep going up and up. So much health care is provided in the last 6 months of life compared to everything else. There are a lot of things about the health care system that ought to be improved. All of our political attention is on health insurance, which is just how to pay for it. As to the health insurance problem, before Obamacare, we had a system that was unraveling, and here's how it unraveled. We had about 30, 35 million uninsured people. So they waited till they got sick. Then they went to the emergency room. And then if you've ever seen a bill from the emergency room, $5,000 is the starting point, and then it goes up from there. So you send a $5,000 bill to somebody who didn't have enough money to buy health insurance. They're not going to pay it. They can't possibly pay it. So what does the hospital do? It writes off the bill. So now the hospital is stuck with 5 or 10 or 15 grand of uncompensated care every time somebody comes to the emergency room and doesn't have a card. So what do? They raise their prices on everybody else. Now the aspirin costs $11 instead of $8. What does that do? It raises the amount they charge to Blue Cross for those who are insured. So what does Blue Cross and the other insurance companies do? Well, they raise their rates. And then what do they do after that? They say, we just raised our rates to cover the additional cost. How about some profit? So they raise their rates a little bit beyond that. Now, you have employers, and people don't see this because employers are paying 50, 80% of the cost. The employer gets the bill, oh my God, look at how the healthcare cost has gone up. So what do? Well, many of them pay, but a few of them say, okay, we're just not going to provide health coverage. And so now you have 37 million people unemployed, or uncovered. Those people go to the emergency room. They get the uninsured coverage. The hospital has more people providing thousands of dollars of care for which they're not paid. They raise the price of the aspirin to $17 per aspirin. Blue Cross and other insurance companies raise their rates, and then they raise them again. More companies drop. That cycle was in full swing in 2008 and
2009. And had we simply kept what we had, we could not have kept what we had. Because that system was unraveling. The only way we're going to be able to provide health care for every American who has the right to show up in an emergency room is to make sure that everybody has coverage. And if I look, excuse me, I have the floor. And hello. And so,
shut up or get out! My son-in-law's a doctor. I know what I'm talking about. I've read the bill.
this is our town hall. The people who should be speaking are those who are recognized for the floor. If somebody wants to speak at great length, they should book their own town hall. And I'll do what I can with El Camino Charter High School to give anyone else here their own forum. You don't hijack somebody else's forum. Now, so the point I'm making is the system we had before was not just bad for the 35 million who didn't have coverage, but was unraveling. If you, God forbid, you had an emergency, you show up in an emergency room that's crowded with a bunch of people who wouldn't be there if only they had the coverage to go somewhere else. You have a hospital raising its rates dramatically every year. You have dramatic increases. And it's easy to say, well, I don't care about those 35 million people that don't have coverage. But the way that system was going, it was going to be 70 and 80, and a lot of people in this room that have coverage today and thought the old system was just great, and their employer was paying almost all the costs, and they didn't think it was that expensive. A lot of those folks would have found themselves among the uninsured. So the old system wasn't working. The new system has some bugs, and let's go on to the next question.